Hello, I'm Valerie Young, board member of Arlington Independent Media. We have been producing conversations with Arlington County candidates so that you can make an intelligent vote. Our next series features candidates for the Arlington County Board. They will be talking with our panel. Karen Bate, founder and CEO, KB Concepts, and the 2022 recipient of the Arlington Women of Vision Award. Saul Reyes, executive director, Bugata. Vivian Williams, Washington Liberty High School class of 2023. In this episode, we will be speaking with Maureen Coffey.
Can you please share with us what motivated you to run for the county board?
Absolutely. So I grew up in Northern Virginia, albeit a little further out into the suburbs. But my dad grew up here, my grandparents are here. I think Northern Virginia and Arlington specifically is such an exceptional place to live. I moved to Arlington in 2017 and just really fell in love with the community, the level of engagement, the fact that people want to be part of something bigger. And I think that for me, being so involved, what I've seen is that we really need a plan that gets us as a community from where we are today to where we're serving everyone's needs. We know that we're falling behind on things like housing and affordable housing, especially on childcare, on mental health services. There's a lot of gaps in our services that is going to take intentional and long-term investments to fill. As someone who works in policy and who's been really engaged in the community, I've kind of seen this gap over time, and I've seen it continue. And as I was thinking about coming through COVID, coming out of COVID, what comes next, I think it became really clear to me that we need some leadership who wants to establish that vision for where is it that Arlington's going and how are we going to get there. Doing that professionally at the Center for American Progress, I thought I would be well positioned, but also because I'm living through a lot of these big picture issues. I was getting outbid on rent last summer by people willing to offer hundreds of dollars more per month for the same apartments that I was looking at. At the same time, I have friends who are having their first kids and who are going through the search for childcare in Arlington and not able to find anything. I think that it's really important that we have leadership who is living through and who is experiencing these difficulties, because as we solve the problems, I really do think it's important that people who have that lived experience are able to help craft the solutions. That means bringing everyone in. That means we have to really work on our public engagement to bring younger folks in, to bring renters in, to bring folks south of Columbia Pike in, places that we haven't really gone as a community before and haven't really wanted to listen to. I think that if we're going to create this vision for Arlington, it has to be a vision that everyone is a part of and that everyone can see their place in going forward.
Thank you. My generation, as the youngest generation, is often overlooked, especially given some of us cannot yet vote. However, we will be the next leaders and make the next big decisions. We believe in inclusivity and solving the problems that the older generations could not. How will you help represent and advocate for a generation you yourself are not a part of?
Yeah, I'm close to part of it. I'm 28. I would be the youngest board member ever elected, I think. And I'm right on the cusp between a millennial and Gen Z. I'm the year that is the divider. And so I was also president of the Virginia statewide Young Dems, working with people 13 to 35 to bring younger folks into the conversation, to have them in leadership roles. I helped the Teen Dems to actually pass legislation in Richmond from a bill that they themselves wrote, which was a really cool experience. I think that seeing yourself represented, seeing younger people represented is so important, because it's much more comfortable to have a tough conversation with someone that you think actually kind of understands your background and sees what you're going through. But the other thing is, I think, just listening and being willing to be a partner. I don't know what it's like to be a teenager today. I know what it's like to be a teenager 15 years ago, but it's changed so rapidly, especially with technology, especially with everything that's gone on through COVID. And so I really want to listen, and I want to be able to uplift people who have those experiences and have ideas about what we could be doing better, because I'm not going to have every single solution. I think that there are ideas out there that I've probably never heard that are great ideas, and I want those to be able to come forward to me.
That's great. And what strategies do you believe would be most effective in implementing programs that cater to the diverse economic and racial community in Arlington, with a particular focus on supporting the immigrant population?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest things is I think we need more and better translation services in Arlington County. When you go to in-person board meetings, everything is in English. Every printed document that you get is going to be in English. And there's been work on that, and I know APS has actually done more of that, having in-person translators at meetings. But I think there's just such a long way to go because it's not just Spanish that is spoken in Arlington. There's hundreds of different languages spoken, and we need to be able to have all of those people included. I think the other big thing is really layering our communication so that we're not just relying on emails or just relying on social media, but we're having a multitude of different options where maybe you're catching 20% of people here and 30% of people over here, and there's going to be some overlap, but it's okay because the more people hear from you, the more likely they are to actually take a look, pay attention, click through. And I think that our online communication could be so much better. Our county website is a bit of a disaster right now. Even as English is my first language, college educated, pretty privileged young woman who's good with technology, I can't navigate that website. And so I don't know how we expect people who have limited time, limited resources to find what they need when we make it so difficult. And so I think bringing down some of those barriers is a really important first step. And then I think the other part is really focusing on our economic stability issues because I know that it is so expensive to live in Arlington. I have a master's degree. I'm struggling to get by most of the time here. And so for other people, I just think about how hard it has to be. And if we are really, truly committed to bringing in people, to supporting our immigrant communities, to supporting people of color in Arlington, then we really do have to address the broad, big picture economic stability issues. Folks need to be able to feel like they can stay in Arlington, they can be part of this community, and that they're valued in our community. And I don't know that that's always the case right now. I think we have a lot of work to do on that.
Thank you. In 2020, during the peaceful protests that followed the murder of George Floyd on video by police, the Arlington County Police were called to action by the former police chief to protect the president while he made disparaging remarks about the protesters. How do you plan to help ensure that ACPD has clear guidelines against racial and economic bias while serving their mission to keep us safe?
I'm really glad that we have a community oversight board now. I think that that is a huge first step. I understand that there is a necessary balance between public safety and what people feel like they need for their own safety, but also for the huge inequities that exist in this system, and not just in Minneapolis, but also here in Arlington. And so I think that we really do need to be clear, one, that police don't prevent crime, they respond to crime. And so a lot on the prevention side needs to be happening through our social services, through our community engagement, making sure that people have the resources so that they don't kind of turn against each other and think that there's nothing else for them to do, there's nothing for them to gain by following the rules. If they are economically empowered, if they have what they need when it comes to basic needs and resources, then I think we're going to be a safer community overall. For the police, I think we really need to be clear about what is a public safety emergency and what is politically motivated in the case of 2020. And I think that their focus needs to be on responding and protecting public safety emergencies. And that does not require us to be going to DC for Donald Trump's protection. However, on January 6th, for example, I do think that there's an argument that that was a huge public safety issue for people in Arlington as well. And so getting some clarity on that, really leaning into our community oversight board, who are community appointed members who have been trained and have been briefed on what it is that we need to do. Those are the kinds of, that's the clarity I think we should be looking for.
Thank you. A topic that is not only important in Arlington, but on a global level is climate change. How do you plan to approach your role on the county board through the lens of climate change?
Absolutely. Climate change is, the challenge of our generation. It's something that I was brought up in a very environmentally conscious family. I think the number one thing that Arlington County can do to better serve our local and global climate goals is to integrate environmental policy into everything that we do. It's not a separate block of policy. It should be part of everything. It should be part of building and development, part of transportation, part of schools, part of public safety, parks and green space. Everything has a role to play when it comes to climate. And so treating environmental policy as an individual bucket is really going to limit our reach. And when you look at the community energy plan that was put together and that was refreshed in 2019, we do have a lot of those really lofty goals, but we also see a lot of ways where we've said, transportation goals in the community energy plan that are not necessarily reflected in our transportation comprehensive plan. And so figuring out how we can break down those silos and integrate everything together so that we're looking at the big picture and able to make the biggest impacts that we possibly can, I think that's the next step for Arlington on climate.
Great. And as you know, 65% of Arlingtonians are renters. And affordable housing is key to providing or preserving community. And we know that the county board has been implementing the Affordable Housing Master Plan by investing record amounts in the Affordable Housing Investment Fund, the Housing Grants Program, and in eviction prevention. With the recent acquisition of Barcroft Apartments, what strategies would you use to provide housing to Barcroft residents who are below the 30% of the area median income? And do you have any suggestions on how we can make more affordability at Barcroft?
Yeah, I am one of the renters in Arlington, and I can firsthand attest to how dysfunctional this housing market is and how increasingly terrible it is. Looking for an apartment can be a full-time job because of how long it takes and how competitive it is. I think that Barcroft is such an innovative program and concept that I haven't seen done in a lot of places. The way that we're layering and combining different types of financing is really excellent. I think for the deeply affordable need, the 30% AMI threshold, we're going to need to be layering not just committed affordable where we pay up front to have the developer and the property management say, this is going to stay affordable for X number of years. Hopefully we'll get 99 or 100 years. That would be awesome. But also supplement that with our housing choice subsidy, federal funding. There is some still available, although some of it is evaporating because the COVID relief funds are going away. But really layering that in so that folks can stay where they already have community and they have home and a support network. I think bigger picture when it comes to how do we create affordability in Arlington. Right now, we are being extremely reactive to what is put in front of us. We're waiting until projects are already in development, that we've already had, someone say, we want to do this. What we really need to do is get more proactive. We need to be in on the ground floor developing relationships so that we have a pipeline that meets our needs. Our housing supply analysis found that we are falling 1,400 units behind every single year in housing, which is going to be almost 30,000 units behind by 2035. That is a huge amount of housing to make up, and that's including the rate at which we're currently building new units as well. So that's in addition to what's already being built. I really think that we need a plan that concretely lays out how we can fill in that deficit. How are we going to get that number of housing units into a pipeline, into development and online, so that we can take pressure off of the existing housing units that we do have. Right now, the competition for affordable housing, for market rate housing is so exorbitant that there's, for every person that does get into an affordable housing unit, there's 10 more that qualify that don't get in. And so we just need to actually meet what we have in Arlington with what we need for Arlington. And that's going to take pretty extensive planning. It's going to take a lot of hard work. And we can't let it get to the point where we're just reacting and instead of actually going out and planning and figuring out what it is we want. Because when we do that ahead of time, we can build in the community benefits, things like environmental sustainability, things like schools and transportation, things that are so important to us here in Arlington, but that if we get behind and we start being reactive, we're not going to have as much control over, and we're not going to have the opportunity to do the way that Arlington wants to do it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.